everybody. This is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
And I'm John Black.
And on this week's episode, we're going to talk about the new Clint Eastwood movie, Hereafter, starring Matt Damon. And we're also going to talk about the new Jackass 3D in theaters as of last Friday with Johnny Knoxville and crew. And then we're also going to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which has its first ever Blu-ray release, special edition, yada, yada, yada. And we're also going to talk about the new release from the Asylum, MILF. John, how are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about these, especially MILF, but we'll get to that.
You know, John, I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
I'm actually kind of excited to talk about Gamera. If not tonight, at another time.
So much fun.
Yeah, I will be watching the what was it on the, I guess the DVD has come out. It's already out.
Yeah, it's a Blu-ray. It has the first two Gamera movies, and I'm a huge fan of what they call kaiju, which are Japanese monster movies. Guys in rubber suits beating each other up around a toy or a model set of Tokyo that gets destroyed. I love that stuff. And this one, it's a giant turtle that flies. So I'm in heaven, just in heaven for this. So
yeah, I caught. I think they showed Gamera, a couple of them at Harvard 3 years ago, and I caught them on the big screen. It was just awesome. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. Hopefully on the next show, if I can get the next two viewed. You know what? Mm-hmm. People think that you can just watch a movie and it's fine, it's easy. But do you know how hard it is to actually just sit down and watch a movie sometimes?
Oh,
yeah, it's like I'll say, yeah, sure, I'll be all set next week. I'll have had this movie. We'll just watch it, and we'll talk about it. So I had intended to see Cell 233. What was it?
211.
211. Okay. Though by the way, there is an incident at the beginning of the movie where I thought it was Cell 233, this issue or something like that, but it's Cell 211. I've only seen 15 minutes of it, but John saw it. Tried watching it last night. Tried watching it this morning. Life gets in the way.
Yep.
If I'm not encased in a movie theater, all of these things can prevent me from, actually watching the movie. And I don't just mean turning your cell phone off. I mean family stuff. So I've only seen.
That's why I have no family and no other ties. I refuse to.
Well, you make it easier. You've made it easier on yourself.
Yep. Yeah. I pared down to the essentials.
Pretty soon they're just going to strap you to a chair and pry your eyes open like a clockwork orange.
That's my dream, Steve. Don't tease me. When I actually set the alarm early. I usually watch a movie every morning, and so I'll set the alarm early. If I have an early start, I'll set it even earlier, and I get up, I get breakfast, I go back to bed, and I watch a movie. That's where I saw the Gamera movies 2 mornings in a row, and I was happy all day.
You also have to give people the impression that you're working.
I am. Believe me. Anyone wants to follow in my shoes for a day, they're welcome to. So
tell 211 quickly. It's worth it.
Yeah. It's a movie about a guy who takes place in a Spanish prison, and it's
hot, by the way, totally hot.
He's going to be a warden. So the day before he actually signs on, they give him a tour of the facility. A riot breaks out. He gets trapped. He has to pretend he's one of the he's an inmate, so they won't kill him. And there's a lot of it takes place in Spain. There's a lot of Spanish politics and different kinds of terrorist organizations and that really went over my head because I don't know a lot about it. But as an action movie, it was a lot of fun. Good, well done, well directed, good acting. I enjoyed it a lot.
Compared to the United States penal system, I'm surprised at how much freedom they had, these prisoners, especially the maximum security prisoners at the beginning of the movie.
I know. And, in the prison, most prison movies are dark and dank. This was like a big, airy place, It's like, it doesn't look that bad, but I'm not in a Spanish prison, so easy for me to talk, right?
Right.
But, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
Cool. I will have watched it at some point this week. So.
All right, but what we did see was, do you want to go with Hereafter first?
Yeah, let's do it. I enjoyed it.
Really?
It's a quality film. I'm so sick. I'm so sick of all this 20-something angst. And then Clint Eastwood comes along and he makes a movie, at his pace, his tempo, his
So it's taste for an 80-year-old man. Is that what you're saying?
It's made with, dude. It's made with maturity. No, it is.
I think it's made with senility, not maturity. I did not. I found it tedious as hell.
I did not. I was riveted through all 120 something minutes.
Well, then you should be the one to tell people what it's all about.
Why
should I spoil it?
Well, it's about connection, basically. It's about people wanting to connect with each other, and the characters in this movie have lost somebody. Each of them has lost somebody close to them, and except for Matt Damon. Matt Damon plays a God. What do they call it? They call it there's another name for it that I'm not thinking. Not a psychic, but a
medium.
A medium, yeah. And he practiced quite prolifically, I guess, for a couple of years, and then he got so fed up with other people's problems that their wanting to communicate with the dead was adversely affecting the quality of his life. Mm-hmm. He was so very depressed. So he, I should also say that he's a guy that, amongst other characters in this film, he has this, in this world, true ability. Mm-hmm. He had an accident long ago wherein they operated on his spinal cord. He had died on and off during this operation, I think like half a dozen times. He survives, but there's something that's left inside him, and that is when he touches somebody or he gets close to someone, he gets a glimpse, a picture of something. He's able to connect to supposedly the afterlife. Like he can touch someone and see that they are yearning to contact or caring greatly for someone who has passed. Mm-hmm. So there's these interlocking stories. There's a story of, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Cécile de France?
She's a French lady?
Yes, who's the author, works at a publishing house in France, but she's vacationing somewhere in the Caribbean, it looks like. I'm not sure.
Well, I think it would be, where did the tsunami strike? Was it Bali?
Yeah.
So, wherever the tsunami struck.
South Asia. And which, by the way, is really an amazing opening 10 minutes of the film, the tsunami. And she has a near-death experience, and this is something that so affects her that she wants to change her direction in life too. And then there's another story of this young boy in England who is very close with his twin brother. He's 10 years old. One of the brothers is 17 minutes older than the other. And through an unfortunate series of events, the older brother is killed. And this young boy, through the very limited means with which he has, attempts to try to contact his brother. He's feeling this is a movie about loneliness, and so he's trying to contact his brother in some
beyond the grave.
From beyond the grave. But it's like they want something, but they don't know what they want. They want some sort of comfort, and their stories intertwine.
Right.
And the movie is slowly paced, but I have to tell you, I was afraid that this thing was going to turn out like something like The Lovely Bones, which was excruciating. Mm-hmm. This was not. This was a somber film. It's very moody, but I found the characters entirely riveting. I found that, yes, it deals with the afterlife, but has so many identifiable things based in reality that make it a comforting experience. And there's so much about. I'll just talk for another 30 seconds here.
Yeah,
John.
all right, thanks.
But I'll just say that what I really
it doesn't
enjoyed.
count. Here I'm rolling my eyes. I'm making faces at you. It doesn't count audio. So yeah, go for 30 more seconds, and then I'll
all right.
weigh in.
I love when the Clint Eastwood team at Malpaso does their film. Yeah, this is a score that probably could be the same score over Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby. It's the same sort of mood, but the production design and the quality of the film is just terrific. I found nearly just every frame of it is just high quality. It's a very pleasing experience, I thought. And I particularly love the production design and the way they used key colors to represent, like the hospital had this blue theme, and the publishing company in France had this sort of red theme. And there was another set that I really liked in this film that had sort of a green outline thing. And these are things that really sort of make a statement as to the quality of the film, but it's not something that you would notice. In other words, like I think a viewer.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're paying attention to the story, but
Right.
if there's something wrong in the background, it's going to come up. I mean, it's going to click in someone's mind that this is less quality. They did lesser quality. They didn't do that right. This is a very beautiful film, and yes, it's slowly paced, but and I was concerned about that prior to seeing it, but it ended up not being bothersome for me. I said to Sarah at the end, I turned to her and said, that was the most riveting, most slowly paced yet riveting 2-hour and 10-minute film I've seen in a while.
Are you sure I was at the same movie? Did I see you there last night?
You were sitting a few chairs over, yeah.
Did you see how much I was twisting and turning waiting for that damn thing to end?
No.
Oh, Steve,
No,
of all the if he had concentrated on any one of those stories, the French woman, the little kid, Matt Damon as a psychic, any one of those stories and made a 90-minute film, I might have been interested. I thought by having those three stories, I thought the way he wove them together was really clumsy. I was just bored. And yes, it's the opening scene with the tsunami is fun. It's very exciting. It's very well shot. But then these people just
the kid tries to get on the train and his hat gets blown away. That was cool.
No. By then
deftly edited.
By then I was sunk in the morass of this movie. It was just so maudlin.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to feel the way you.
Oh my
feel
God!
About it.
You know what I thought was great? There was one scene I liked even more than the tsunami was when Bryce, what's her name? Bryce
Dallas Howard.
Right.
Right. The cooking scenes.
She meets Damon's character. They take an adult ed course in how to cook Italian food, and they do this little scene where she's blindfolded and he's feeding her food, and she's trying to guess what the food is while she's trying to, figure out what he's all about. And
that was terrific.
If they're there. Great scene, really well done. The only scene I really liked in the movie, besides watching shit get washed away in the tsunami, big action opening, fine. But the rest of it, I was just like, oh, and you had mentioned the score.
Yes, it's very
annoying. It's very annoying.
Oh, John.
No, it's the same it's the same songs or the same jazz or whatever it is.
This is Clint Eastwood's pace. He doesn't care for this. As far as I'm assuming that he doesn't care for this, high intensity hackneyed editing that goes into so many movies that are geared towards teenagers.
I think
younger.
No, I don't think I think it's just that he doesn't care. He's making the movie he wants to make, and that's fine.
Yes.
But when Matt Damon and the French woman finally meet in the most contrived bullshit way possible, and then the music swells. The music swells like it was some kind of
it did swell,
animation.
but it also
was
signified
laughable.
The conclusion.
Well, duh. You'd have to have fallen asleep, which I almost did for the last hour of the movie to not know it was the end.
This wasn't meant to be greater than, like something astonishing. It's just a film that's supposed to be. It is what it is,
which is boring to me. Whatever it was boring. I was so, like I said, none of this. They all pulled together in such a contrived way. And what's with the Dickens thing?
Didn't you like the fact that the little kid was so persistent that he wasn't going to let Matt Damon presents one opportunity in a lifetime for both of these people, and especially the kid. So if the kid lost him in that book, Fair Place, that was it. So he just clung to seeking him out, and I thought that was,
again, if he had concentrated on, I didn't have enough of the kid to care that much. I didn't have enough of the French woman to care that much. I got telegraphed images, but not a complete story for either one. When I mentioned before that if he had concentrated on one of these stories and given me more, I would have maybe surrendered to it more than I did. But because again, he does these telegraphed images of these people. It's like bits and pieces of a story, not the full story for me. Bits and pieces.
Well, they are juxtaposed against each other, and there's long patches of this film where you go without the main characters for 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it's not a Matt Damon movie for a fair portion of it. It's the other Cécile de France. It's her film. For a large portion of it, it's this little kid. It's a terrific performance from these two twin boys. It's juggling three stories, but in my opinion, the actors carry it so well that it works. That they're very interesting people to watch, and it works. It flows. They slowly sort of uncover meanings behind things that they didn't think were meaningful. Like in particular, when Cécile de France, she says that she's going to write a book on how society, how the church, how politicians,
bury all
bury
science
stories about
the afterlife.
Yeah, these real stories, in the fiction of this movie, the real stories about the afterlife. So she thinks that's a better investigative book than the one she's writing on François Mitterrand.
Okay. Right, but then the script gives us none of that information. It just tells us, the politicians are burying everything, and I'm going to write a book about it. But we never get any of the information that this is actually happening.
You don't actually see her writing the book. You see her researching it. She goes to the mental hospital and she finds out from, I guess, one of the people that ran it that, she was an atheist, but what people who have died and come back haven't. They have some sort of a common vision of sorts. I mean, this could be something that the body does when it expires, or it could be something metaphysical, religious.
But
they don't know. It's commonality.
It's all thrown away in like one line of dialogue. There's no substance there. We're just supposed to follow along when someone says, well, that's what many people think.
Well, things are slowly revealed to them, so we, through them, are learning things at the same time. So slowly.
I didn't see the revelation. I didn't see any revelation. I just saw him talk about it and then move on.
But didn't you
revelation?
Okay, the scenes where they flash cut to these blurred images. The scenes where they flash cut to these blurred images of the afterlife, and where you don't really get to focus in on who these characters are, but you kind of know who they are. It's a really sort of a weird feeling. There's sort of this underlying morbidity that's kind of unsettling but neat. And then when Matt Damon does his readings, like he does one at the beginning with Richard Karn, he doesn't go out of his way to do this. I mean, his character is doing everything he can to, repel these things because they ruin his own life. But Matt Damon in these readings is very good at just the subtlety of his acting and delivering what he's the line in such ways that we're, we can. It's as if we, the audience, are getting the reading, and he's telling us. He has this longer vision. Like Eastwood only shows us these blurred images, but in Matt Damon's head, his character gets these long visions and detailed visions of the person who they're trying to connect with, and it's kind of neat. So, and it's also a very reactionary movie. When you see these people receive this information, this little kid, he's so antiseptic and cold, but when something happens that he needs or wants, he breaks. And he cries, and it's not a breakdown and cry kind of movie. It's more like a stand there, tear fall down kind of movie. It's breaking. They're broken on the inside. Okay. We, the audience, are supposed to emote.
I don't know. I think you're reading too much into it for me. I didn't see any of that. I didn't feel any of that. I just saw a bug-eyed kid who was silent.
That's harsh, John.
No, it's not, Steve. It's no more harsh than these things that you found in the movie that I didn't find. I just found this silent, bug-eyed waif. He looks like one of those guys, one of those kids from those paintings, those
John,
bug-eyed.
He's a silent, bug-eyed waif. Because his life at home is a disaster. His mom gets drunk and scares him. He has to ward off social services with, deceit and lies because these two kids are covering for their mom. They fear that, when someone's scared shitless, they freeze up. And here's a kid that's trying to build a better life, do something nice for their mom. I thought that photo scene was terrific. The gift of the photo that she ultimately didn't notice. But it's like he's frozen because he's scared. Both of them are, scared about their situation. It's not that they don't have a loving mom. It's just that she has these addictions that have destroyed their life. Mm-hmm. And, they're both sort of working towards making it better. So I think in casting this kid, They didn't do something, overt, like some crazy acting out kid. It's all, he's scared shitless but stoic, that kind of thing. That's how I saw it.
Okay. I just,
He told him to be that way,
I'm sure he did. He said, "We're making a movie for 80-year-old men. I don't want you to do anything too exciting."
Right. Okay.
I just, we were on opposite sides of the aisle and opposite sides of this film. I just didn't feel
it was predictable. I didn't think it was predictable.
Oh, I thought it was totally predictable.
I didn't.
And then
I liked that they go to the book fair and Matt Damon's objective is to meet Derek Jacobi, who does Charles Dickens reading. That's absurd.
Well, it's the only reason we've been tortured with Dickens through the film. I just thought it not only was it wasn't just predictable, Steve. I thought it was manipulative. The way they brought them all together at the book fair. Suddenly, she gets a book deal and makes him go to London. He suddenly goes to London. Oh, look, the kid's already in London and just happens to be going to the book fair.
My unfair response to you is that all movies are manipulative.
Of course they are, but
this is more overt. I don't agree.
Some gently push you in one direction. Some give you whiplash. This gave me whiplash.
It was a gentle film. You used gentle. No. I'll grant you this.
You were correct. I was
here. I will grant you this. It's a long movie.
Yes.
It's somber. I'm not looking forward to going out and seeing it again, but as a one-time experience, I enjoyed it. And I was astonished by some of the scenes in this movie. The subway scene I thought was terrific, particularly, of course, the tsunami scene, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the action scenes, of course. But it has these elements. The actors are terrific. I think it's a quality film. I say yes.
And we can we can replay that, what you just said, and just have me say the opposite of everything, and there's my 2 cents.
Okay.
But we really don't need to talk about it anymore. People make up their mind. And, once they do, because we're on such polar opposites, people can listen to this, side with either one of us, and then write us an email to, what's the address again, Stephen?
Postmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, I forgot to open the show that way. I should. Okay. People listening to the show, please, if you get the chance, leave us a review on iTunes or something like that. We'd really appreciate it. It seems like half of everybody who listens to the show downloads it on iTunes. And we had nearly 1,000 listeners over the past couple of weeks, so that's pretty good.
Wait until Eastwood hears about this, and then he starts posting his own reviews. That'll be something.
Yeah.
Clint's after me.
Didn't he did roundtables last week? And
I guess I don't do those things anymore.
I thought
so
it just went down and do.
Ed sat through this movie twice.
Yeah. He was sitting right behind me.
Yeah, he's got some
really
explaining to do. Okay, let's move on to a movie I'm sure we'll agree on.
Jackass 3D.
Yes. It had some of the best 3D effects I've ever seen in a movie. The 3D, when I saw it...
Why are the best 3D
I know.
effects also the most obscene?
But this was sharp. The 3D worked. There was no fuzzy image or, fuzziness like there was in that Owl movie. There were no technical glitches at all. When I saw this, the 3D popped. Yes.
Better than Piranha?
Probably as good as Piranha, if not, but I think this was a lot brighter for some reason. Maybe they put a new bulb in the projector.
Excuse me, I'm having a sip of coffee. I think they genuinely filmed it in 3D.
Yeah, and that's just, I was just impressed by the sheer look of the thing, even though I wasn't real happy at a lot of the stuff I was looking at.
Oh my God,
the look
John,
of the thing was good.
I can't recall the last time I nearly had my gag reflex.
Sure you can. It was Jackass 2.
There is a segment of this film called
Is it the train?
No, the part that hit my gag reflex was the human sweat tea.
Oh yeah.
Steve-O, what did they call it?
Sweat cocktail.
Sweat cocktail. Where Preston Lachey, the huge overweight guy, is in this plastic transparent suit with a tube hooked up just below his belt down near his groin. So as he's on the treadmill, he's sweating buckets. And all of this is being dripped into a tube and then into a cup, which Steve-O will then drink.
Of course he will. Of course he
Holy
will.
shit.
That's what makes him
Just
Steve-O.
talking about it makes me want to gag. And then, okay, so they show you the accumulation of all the sweat. And then Steve-O, does a quick, here's to yada yada. And then downs it. Holy shit. Oh my God. That didn't need to be in 3D. That was just pure revulsion.
Did you gag or did you laugh or did you laugh and gag?
I gagged. I think that there were some people around me who were genuinely wondering if they were going to throw up. I'm sure there are people in this.
The cameraman who's shooting it throws up.
Sorry?
The cameraman who was shooting it in the scene.
Oh, yeah. That guy, the cameraman who shot it, they actually show him throwing up into the camera.
Yeah.
Not in
3D.
Lens, but him actually throwing up on the eyepiece that he's trying to look through the film. Just the poor guy. The cinematographer. He knew what he was getting into.
What did Sarah say? She wanted to know the story of this or the plot? Sarah didn't go. I said, that's why you're still together.
Yeah, I just wanted her to respect my my taste in movies, and that it would be tainted after telling her that I was going to go see Jackass 3D.
It's work, Stephen. You have to tell him it's work.
I have to do things for work, and I don't want my highly regarded taste in movies. I mean, I have ridiculously good taste in movies.
Oh, really? Do you?
Man, so anyway, I'm kidding. I just was like, gotta go see it. And she asked me if there was a narrative to it, being linked with Jackass. And there's no story. No, there's no story.
The only narrative is, hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is Jackass.
Yeah.
Boom. And then they do the most ridiculous stunts they can think of. Some which seem to take some thought and some which don't.
Yeah, and if there is a climax, it's basically just what's the big stunt.
Yeah.
I mean, Johnny Knoxville, I guess I would guess that he does maybe 6 main stunts in the film.
Uh-huh.
So everybody gets their time in the sun.
Oh, yeah. Or they crawl out under a rock and do their time in the sun.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is almost critic-proof because you know what you're getting when you go. My real complaint, because I'm not a fan of the first movie, I'm not a fan of the TV show. Yes, I sit there and there are things that make me chuckle, and there are things that make me roll my eyes in disgust. But there's not a lot of originality, this is the same shit they've been doing for 2 movies now.
It's the same old. There are some big laughs though. I mean, football to the groin philosophy, it just works. It's funny. There's a very, very funny scene that doesn't have anything to do with stunts in the movie where the 2 dwarves go to the bar and one
the midget
fight his girlfriend. The midget fight in the bar where all the patrons, the motorcycle gang type patrons, are watching this jilted lover come in and start harassing and then beating on the other dwarf, and then he goes out the door and he comes back with all of his gang.
Right,
dwarves.
right.
So there's just a pylon of half a dozen dwarves happening in the middle of the bar, and all of a sudden the police are called, and the
midget police.
Yeah, the midget police come in and start freaking everything up, and then things get further out of hand, and the midget ambulance crew shows up.
Right.
So yeah, as a punked gag, that was pretty funny.
That one was well done. There's just, but then I'm Johnny Knoxville and I'm gonna get I'm standing in front of a charging buffalo.
Did you have a favorite gag?
Favorite gag. Well, I think the midget one was good. I kind of like the Electric Avenue.
That was my favorite. That was my favorite. So just to explain this, there's this. It looks like it's the Jackass 3D production office, and there's probably a 15-foot hallway, a skinny hallway, wherein at one end Johnny Knoxville's dressed in a police uniform, and behind him are his Jackass crew guys dressed in convicts uniforms. And what they've done over this. In this hallway, they've taken like 50 tasers and hung them at varying lengths from swinging strings at the ceiling. And then they have these cattle prods on these sort of twirling mechanisms. And so all of these things are lit and swinging back and forth, basically sort of impenetrable. And then there's this sort of like a couple of obstacles that they have to jump over in order to get, to the other side. So Johnny Knoxville says, "Hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville. This is the prison, and then that side represents freedom. And if these guys want to get out, they're going to have to make it through Electric Avenue." And then the music kicks in. Oi, and then they're just piling all over each other, trying to avoid these.
And getting the shit shocked out of them.
It was good. It was good. And I think the fact that it's scored to the Eddie Grant song really added a lot to the scene of these guys just getting shocked to hell and piling all over each other, just to make it out of this hell. That was funny.
Right. But that's like, there's like 3, maybe 4 segments in this I thought were funny, but the rest of it's like, I'm just waiting for, hopefully, if this movie was a half hour shorter, I would have liked it more. It doesn't need to be 90 minutes.
What about the duck hunting one with the
that's
the guy
who's kind of funny, but
projectile from the other end of this like what do they call those things, like giant inflatable air mattress thing that when 2 guys jump off a crane on one end, it propels the other guy 50 feet into the air, and then all the other Jackass crew have paintball guns and they're shooting them. You know what was good about this film?
No.
The opening sequence and the closing sequence.
Yeah.
Again, everything just blew up around him.
And that's when the 3D really works too. It's really well done.
Yeah.
But they
do reveal that it's a special effect at the end because they showed the individual filming of the sequences that they melded together.
Right. But it works.
It does.
And it looks great. So
they could have done that for an hour and a half, and that would have been. No, that I would.
All right.
Is the all right? That's
how much more attention do we want to give?
That's not the subtle hint that we should bring this conversation about Jackass.
Yeah, it is.
Is it? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm being as subtle as I can. This is my Jackass response. It's like, okay, I get it. The biggest thing on that budget was probably the insurance.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Like, how do they cover themselves on something like that?
Who would cover them?
They're really employed as stuntmen.
Yeah.
It's basically, and I think these things that they're doing are actually kind of life-threatening. When he takes that jet ski and he jumps over the hedge with it, the mountain, you can really, you could get killed. When Steve-O, there's a scene where Steve-O is in the urinal, and there's 2 ongoing themes in the movie. There's one called Rocky Punch, where the camera's filming somebody, and somebody sneaks up from behind with a water bottle and a boxer's glove, and they throw the water into the person's face, and then they hit him from the other side with the boxer's glove, so it sort of creates this watery smashed face in slow motion. So that's a running gag in the movie. And the other running gag is the blue paint in the urinal, the blue paint in the porta potty that people walk into. So towards the end of the movie, there's this one stunt that Steve-O does that involves a porta potty, not the blue paint, but basically it's like a flying shit box where I'm talking about this because as an example of something that could really do somebody in for good. I'm talking about life ending. This guy, Steve-O, puts himself in the urinal with tons of shit, right? And the urinal is attached to these 2 bungee cords that it's stretched, and when released, just shoots him into the air, like probably 100 feet. And, the thing is just bobbing up and down. So he's just basically like martini mixing this guy in shit. Until, and then he could get killed. I mean, that's a legitimate stunt. It's frigging nuts. It really is. I mean, you have to wonder where these guys are coming from in their heads. And then there's a scene where the producer, Spike Jonze, appears to jump over a speeding Lamborghini. It could have been an optical effect. I don't know. But, what the hell? He could really get done in here. Okay. So that's my fault. I just talked about Jackass for a couple minutes longer than we should have. And now, Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror Picture Show has just been released on Blu-ray, and it is good. I have to tell you, I was really blown away by it. Sometimes, we receive DVDs and, it's interesting. But some of them are interesting, but then there's the ones that just kind of, the experience sort of blows you away. And then I end up being very eager to talk about it or say, you really have to, experience this. And the Rocky Horror disc it's quite amazing, actually. It's ingenious in a way. That's just the disc, but the movie itself, I've always thought it was an average film. The first time I saw it, I didn't like it.
Right.
In fact, the first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck are these people doing? This is really annoying. This grocery bags full of toast and popcorn and stuff. I was really annoyed.
Right.
Did you have a Rocky Horror experience when you were a kid?
I went to the midnight show in Providence, and I went with my friend Kenny, who it was hilarious because someone hit him with a piece of toast or hit him with water when in the rain section. Yeah. And Kenny went out and filled a giant popcorn box with water and came back and dumped it on the kid's head and then left. He had no idea there was any participation required. So that was my first experience with it.
I would have to say that I did not know that there was such participation. I saw it in the early 80s at a movie theater near Great Lakes Naval Base in Waukegan.
Okay.
And so there were a fair number of sailors there, and in various modes of dress, both men and women. And I was really annoyed by all the rice throwing and the stuff. I really wanted to watch the movie. I was amused by a couple of things, the things that they said at the screen and some of when the globe stops and everybody flies away. I thought that was pretty cool. But I was mostly annoyed by it. But, I'd seen it again in the 90s and it was very entertaining. But I thought it's because, you're going to the theater to see that. You're going to see the shadow play, not just the film. You go to see these performances, and this is what the disc, the Blu-ray does. Now, I have not owned the prior discs of Rocky Horror, so I don't know all of the extra features that were on there, but there's a ton of extra features on this Blu-ray. The main extra feature on this thing is called a shadowcast performance, which is basically the actors, these theater performers, and they cast them from all over the world. Well, L.A., New York, London, Germany. The DVD producers brought the best of these casts into a theater outside San Diego. They filmed it. I think it was outside San Diego. And they filmed the entire shadowcast performance, which you can toggle in between the two. You can do the theater performance or the movie while the movie soundtrack's playing. You can switch back and forth. And that just adds so much to the experience. It actually... And as opposed to just like, this is Rocky Horror the movie. No, it's more than that. The Blu-ray gives you the entire Rocky Horror experience. Mm-hmm. That if you haven't seen it before in the theater, this is what it is. You're watching it as much for these actors who are copying what's going on the screen. Plus, you get via subtitles you can get, or above the picture titles you can get the callbacks. The things that the audience yells at the screen. So it's all this experience. Plus, you even have an option to be able to throw little digital hot dogs and digital toast and digital popcorn or whatever, rice. So it's that whole thing. And I think that's what's important about this disc. It's not the movie, and it's not to be judged as just the movie. This is to be experienced as the entire thing, which is the whole 2-hour performance that this cast does and all the other extras that are on the disc. Mm-hmm. Plus they have an hour or two, possibly more than at least an hour, I guess, documentary on how they put together and cast this shadowcast performance, which during the course of this documentary, you get to find out why these people are so, you learn about them and you learn about their love for the movie, and then that just sort of works its way on you. You get to see how this has affected people and, what they're all about. And this particular disc did the experience well. I mean, as much as Blu-ray can do it, it did. John.
Yes.
Picks of the week. What do you have in store?
A guilty pleasure.
Oh, good. Those are always the best,
They are. They are.
Their quality, but.
And it's Benny Hill, the complete mega set on DVD. 18 DVDs of Benny Hill,
Oh my God.
600 sketches.
Where are you going to find the time?
You don't have to. That's the great thing about it is it's one of these things I think you can watch with the with your finger on the skip button. So when a skip starts to get dull, or there's because it was shot in the 60s, there's a lot of musical segments. Skip them. Just go on. There's always something. I think you're bound to find something sooner or later that'll make you laugh, even if it's an embarrassed kind of, I can't believe they let him get away with this kind of laugh. I was a huge fan. I remember as a kid, like around 10 or 12 when I first saw it.
Yeah, the mid-70s.
Yeah, and you just kind of like, this is, but he's a vaudeville. It's the vaudeville music hall tradition of English comedy. It's not as twisted as Monty Python got or anything, but there were shapely women and bawdy jokes and songs, and he delivers them all with this kind of like childish glee that just tickles me even now. So I haven't watched the whole thing. I'm treasuring it. I watch maybe 1 or 2 episodes a day or something. So not a day, a week.
When did Benny Hill go from like mid-60s to the mid-70s?
Yeah. I don't know the exact dates here. Like 69 to 80.
Wow, is that long?
Yeah. And again, just one of those things where it's funny. I mentioned to Sean Burns is one of our fellow critics, and I mentioned I had a Benny Hill box set, and he immediately launched into the theme song.
Yeah,
and it was just like,
it's up there as one of the more annoying.
Oh, come on. It's annoying, but it's also unforgettable.
Yeah.
They should have had it as part of the soundtrack to Hereafter. Singer. Yeah, that would be cool.
They were in London, right?
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah.
How many discs in that set?
It's 18.
Jesus.
It's a long commitment of time.
God.
But I had a blast. So what's your recommendation?
Well, I've got 2.
Aha!
The first is MILF, which I did enjoy.
Yeah, I watched it too. This is the one from Asylum. Are they the Asylum?
The Asylum, yeah.
Who also gave us Titanic 2 and
Gacy House.
Gacy House.
Which I haven't seen yet.
It's awful.
Oh my God.
And
it was awesome. Did you say awesome or awful?
No, it's awful. The Gacy House was like the worst cell phone movie I've seen since I don't know when. It was like I curse the people who made the Blair Witch Project. They ruined horror movies in a lot of ways because now anyone thinks that if you shake the camera hard enough it's going to be scary, and it's not.
But MILF is what it is. It's a Porky's parody.
If I was 14, this would be the best movie ever. Now that I'm a little older, it's still pretty funny.
It's
stupid, but it's
not badly acted. It's just terribly, terribly stupid and amusing.
Yeah.
But it's just not in any way original. In fact, I worked on a movie in the early 80s that had a very, very similar plot line wherein there are 2 college kids who are rooming with each other, and one of the college kids is basically nailing the guy's mom. Mm-hmm. I worked for a week on this movie. Maybe you've seen it. It's called Class. With
Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah. I was an extra in a number of scenes. Sort of a bit part kind of interactive thing in a couple, wherein they filmed it at Lake Forest College. I grew up in Lake Forest, Illinois.
I tell people that you were Jacqueline Bissette's body double, but that's the story I tell.
No, I think I told you about this before, John. You said we're not going to go into detail.
No, we're not going to go into details on that. We're just going to skip over that story.
We'll just say that you have met Andrew McCarthy before.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so my first meeting with Andrew McCarthy was I was playing this. Actually, I think it was a boarding school. Not college as it is in this movie MILF, but it's a class takes place in a boarding school. We did all these scenes where Andrew McCarthy is teased when he comes back into the lunchroom, at various times. There's a few scenes that take place in the lunchroom. But he rooms with Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe is basically nailing Jacqueline Bisset, who is the wife of the headmaster and who is this kid's mom. This is basically what's happening here in this movie, where the main kid has been seduced, as I guess Rob Lowe was. The main kid in MILF was seduced by his roommate's mother. And their father, who is gay, becomes privy to this and doesn't want this. He's a really naive kid. He doesn't want his hopes and dreams crashed because he trusts his roommate. But it's all about sex.
Yeah,
it's all about getting it.
Yeah.
A minute or two doesn't go by in this movie where they're not talking about boobies or what they were doing the prior night, or getting some, because it's just college raunch and MILF. So I watched this movie. We've been having some work done on the apartment, so Sarah and I have had to stay over at her parents' house.
Oh, you invited the family to watch it?
Right, so
wasn't the title a giveaway? You maybe not want to watch this.
Well, I watched
parents
at their parents' house, but we watch it late at night. They're way on the other side of the house. There's
right
in the TV room. My mistake is that we went to bed and I left the disc in the machine. So her mom, very good. There's a treadmill in the in the TV room, and she's very good about working out in the morning. And she usually does it, watching like a TV show or something like that. I left the MILF DVD in the machine.
So she works out some milk?
Well, the thing is that like I envisioned coming down into the kitchen and her being like embarrassingly have to say, "Oh, here's the DVD from us." Anyway, fortunately, she didn't know what MILF was.
She didn't know what it stood for?
As far as I know. I didn't get any indication of that. I was more like, let's put the movie back. Anyway, MILF from our good friends at the asylum.
Yep, that was worth seeing. Because it's kind of like because you like Porky, you sat through Porky's 2, 3, 4, whatever. If you have any kind of fond memories of those kind of movies, it delivers. It's well made. The acting's pretty good. The jokes are okay. And there's plenty of gratuitous nudity.
Yes.
Plenty of gratuitous nudity.
Yes.
Like I said, the 14-year-old boy in me really liked that movie.
Yeah, I had to look away a few times because there were a couple of gross moments.
Oh, okay. It wasn't from the nudity, right? Yeah. Don't disappoint me here, Steve. You wouldn't mean the thing in the wall, would you?
Yeah, I looked away.
Yeah, so
I covered my eyes during Jackass. I literally had to put my hands in front of my eyes and
giving people the wrong impression here.
I can be easily queasy, So anyway.
Yes. All right, Mr. Queasy.
Man, I also wanted to recommend Rare Cult Cinema from Mill Creek. And the reason this, there's crap on here, okay? But they have a DVD set. It's 12 films, Rare Cult Cinema. On this set is My Mom's a Werewolf. Just an awesome, trashy 80s flick. Awesome. Loved it. And then there's Death Row Game Show, basically about death row inmates who are playing for their lives, in a society where the death is the amusing thing. You can trade your punishment, for whatever is behind door number 3. Just really bad 80s. They call it drive-in fare, but I don't know how. Yeah, I'm inclined to say that drive-ins weren't so prevalent still in the 80s, but anyway, they're from Mill Creek. No, Crown International Pictures, your purveyor of classic 70s grindhouse.
Right,
This is a couple of their 80s offerings. But it also is The Kidnapping of the President with William Shatner, and another film I haven't seen yet, but I'm very interested in seeing, called Almost Hollywood. Because it's Crown International Pictures, there's going to be something wrong with it. There's going to be something bad about it, so I'm eager to see it. Anyway, it's a good bad thing. Mostly bad, but bad in the amusing sense. As are many of the things that we talk about.
True. That is true.
So I think that's it. I think we're done for this week, unless you have anything else you want to add that needs to be said.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Be sure to check us out online. We're at post-movie.net. And as always, send us an email at postmoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We like encouraging emails. Those are good. It's always nice to know that there's someone out there being entertained by what. And check us out on Facebook. Until next week, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
And I'm John Black.
So long.